At first glance, the world around us feels safe and ordinary. We live surrounded by electric devices, wireless signals, microwave ovens, smartphones, and concrete walls. Radiation seems like a distant danger, something associated with nuclear disasters or science labs. But the more deeply we think about it, the more complex and intriguing the question becomes: how harmful is environmental and man-made radiation to our health? And in light of that, does it make sense to shield our homes using materials like metal, ceramics, or water to reduce exposure? To grasp the issue, imagine standing in a room bathed in invisible currents. Some of these currents are natural, emanating from the sun, cosmic rays, or even radioactive isotopes in the ground beneath your feet. Others are artificial, created by the Wi-Fi router in your hallway, the cell tower down the road, and the power lines humming silently above. Yet despite this invisible ocean of radiation, our bodies seem to function just fine. So what kinds of radiation are truly dangerous and which are benign? The key to understanding this lies in a fundamental distinction: ionizing versus non-ionizing radiation. Ionizing radiation, like X-rays, gamma rays, and alpha particles, has enough energy to strip electrons from atoms, damaging DNA and potentially leading to mutations, cancer, or other health effects. This kind of radiation is unquestionably hazardous at high doses, such as those found near nuclear accidents or from intense medical imaging. But it is also naturally present in small amounts in soil, rocks, building materials, and even our own bodies. A certain baseline level of exposure is part of life on Earth. But what about the radiation from our technology? Our phones, microwaves, and Wi-Fi networks. This falls under non-ionizing radiation, which includes radio waves, microwaves, infrared, and visible light. These waves are lower in energy and do not have the ability to ionize atoms or directly damage DNA, and yet they are often the focus of public anxiety. Could long-term exposure to these signals be silently harming us? The scientific consensus, built over decades of epidemiological and laboratory studies, is that non-ionizing radiation at everyday levels poses minimal health risks. Organizations like the World Health Organization, the International Agency for Research on Cancer, IARP, and the International Commission on Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection, ICNIRP, have examined links between things like cell phone use and cancer. So far, no clear evidence has shown that typical exposure causes lasting harm, though research continues, especially as our exposure grows. But still, there are exceptions. One genuine concern is radon gas, a naturally occurring radioactive gas that can seep into homes from soil and rock. In poorly ventilated spaces, especially basements, radon can accumulate to dangerous levels and significantly increase the risk of lung cancer. In such cases, shielding or ventilation makes sense, not because of electromagnetic radiation, but due to ionizing particles emitted from radioactive decay. So, should you build your home like a radiation bunker, wrapped in metal, lined with ceramics, or surrounded by water tanks? In most cases, probably not. While materials like lead or thick water walls are excellent at blocking gamma rays and neutrons, they're unnecessary unless you're living near a powerful radiation source, such as a reactor or medical imaging facility. Wrapping a house in metal might block some radio waves, but it could also interfere with communications and offer no meaningful health benefit. Ceramic and concrete materials, while durable, often contain trace amounts of natural radioisotopes themselves, meaning your walls might emit more ionizing radiation than your phone ever could. Yet, the conversation doesn't end there. As we develop more wireless technologies, 5G networks, and smart homes, the cumulative exposure to low-level EMFs is increasing. While most studies find no cause for alarm, some researchers urge caution, not because we know it's harmful, but because we don't yet fully understand the long-term cumulative effects. Shielding paint, EMF-blocking fabrics, or Faraday cage-like materials have entered the consumer market, though their effectiveness and necessity remain debated. Could shielding make sense in some future context? Possibly, if certain technologies generate new forms of exposure, or if individual health conditions warrant a more cautious approach. Already, sensitive instruments, quantum computing labs, and even some wellness clinics use Faraday shielding to block ambient fields. But for the average person in a typical urban or rural home, the risks from environmental radiation are lower than many everyday hazards like air pollution, poor diet, or lack of exercise. So, how harmful is environmental and man-made radiation? The answer lies in nuance. Ionizing radiation is dangerous in large doses, but mostly harmless in the tiny amounts we naturally encounter. Non-ionizing radiation is almost everywhere, but current evidence suggests it is more a psychological concern than a physical one for most people. Shielding your home with dense materials may offer peace of mind, but scientifically, it's rarely necessary. Could future discoveries force us to rethink our relationship with ambient radiation? Perhaps. As we develop more precise sensors and understand more about subtle biological processes, we may uncover new effects or confirm once theoretical risks. But for now, the darkness in the sky and the silence of your walls are not signs of danger, but rather reminders of how much still remains to be discovered in the invisible forces that surround us every day. Environmental and other radiation exists in many forms, from natural background sources such as cosmic rays and radon gas to man-made sources like X-rays and cell towers. Radiation includes both ionizing types, which have enough energy to remove tightly bound electrons from atoms, and non-ionizing types, which are generally less energetic. Ionizing radiation can damage biological tissue at the molecular level, while non-ionizing radiation typically interacts with matter by causing heating. Understanding the distinctions between these types is crucial to assessing their potential impact on health. Cosmic radiation and radon gas are naturally occurring sources that contribute to our daily exposure without causing immediate harm under normal circumstances. It's like the difference between a gentle breeze that cools you down, non, and a harsh wind that can tear clothes apart, ionizing. Ionizing radiation, such as gamma rays and X-rays, can break chemical bonds and damage DNA, potentially leading to cancer and other health issues if exposure is high or prolonged. Non-ionizing radiation, including radio frequency and microwave radiation, primarily causes thermal effects, but is generally considered less harmful at typical environmental levels. However, there remains ongoing research into the potential long-term biological effects of non-ionizing radiation, particularly with increasing exposure from modern communication devices. The overall risk depends on the dose, duration, and frequency of exposure, along with individual susceptibility. Medical X-rays deliver ionizing radiation doses that are carefully controlled to minimize risk while providing diagnostic benefits. It's like comparing a fire that can burn and cause lasting damage, ionizing, to a mild sunburn that might be uncomfortable but usually heals without long-term harm, non-ionizing. Daily environmental exposure to radiation is generally low, with the average person receiving about 2-3 millisieverts per year from natural sources. Regulatory agencies set exposure limits for occupational and public settings to ensure safety, usually far below levels known to cause immediate health risks. Even with the addition of man-made sources, cumulative doses remain within the established safety margins for the general population. Continuous monitoring and adherence to safety standards help mitigate potential risks from routine radiation exposure. The radiation dose from a single dental X-ray is only a fraction of the annual background radiation dose. It's like receiving a small drop of water from a faucet compared to the total volume of water you encounter in a day. When ionizing radiation interacts with biological tissue, it can ionize atoms and molecules, leading to direct damage to DNA and the formation of free radicals. These free radicals can initiate a cascade of chemical reactions that further damage cellular structures. The body has repair mechanisms to correct some of this damage, but excessive exposure can overwhelm these systems. The severity of damage depends on both the radiation dose and the sensitivity of the tissue exposed. High doses of gamma radiation can cause acute radiation syndrome by overwhelming cellular repair processes. It's like a car's engine that can repair minor scratches on its paintwork, but a severe hailstorm can cause damage that exceeds the repair capacity. Risk from radiation is evaluated based on the total dose received over time, the duration of exposure, and the context in which the exposure occurs. Short bursts of high radiation can be more harmful than prolonged exposure to low levels, and vulnerable populations such as children or pregnant women may be at higher risk. Epidemiological studies have helped establish dose-response relationships that guide regulatory limits. In everyday environments, the cumulative exposure is typically well below levels that would pose significant health risks. Studies of atomic bomb survivors have informed our understanding of radiation risk, demonstrating clear dose-response effects at high levels while everyday background radiation remains safe. It's like the difference between a single intense workout that can strain your muscles and a moderate daily exercise routine that strengthens them without causing injury. Different materials have varying capacities to block or attenuate radiation. For ionizing radiation, dense materials like lead, tungsten, and concrete are commonly used. Non-ionizing radiation can be mitigated with materials that reflect or absorb electromagnetic waves, such as metal meshes, water barriers, or specialized ceramics. Each material's effectiveness depends on its density, thickness, and the type and energy of the radiation. In designing radiation shields, engineers balance protection cost and practical considerations such as weight and structural integration. Lead aprons are used in medical settings to protect patients and staff from X-ray exposure by absorbing ionizing radiation effectively. It's like wearing a heavy raincoat made of waterproof material to block downpours, where different fabrics, metal, ceramic, water, have varying abilities to keep you dry. While it is technically feasible to line a home with radiation shielding materials, the benefits depend heavily on the types and levels of radiation present in the environment. For most individuals, environmental radiation is at levels considered safe by regulatory agencies, so extensive shielding may offer little additional protection. In some specialized cases, such as in areas with high radon levels or near industrial radiation sources, targeted mitigation measures can be beneficial. However, widespread use of heavy shielding materials can introduce other challenges, including cost, reduced natural light, and potential health risks from restricted ventilation. Homes in areas with elevated radon levels often incorporate specific ventilation systems and sealing techniques, rather than being entirely lined with metallic or ceramic materials. It's like building a fortress to guard against a drizzle. The extensive fortifications may be unnecessary and counterproductive when a simple umbrella would suffice. Implementing extensive radiation shielding in residential environments involves weighing the potential health benefits against economic and practical costs. The marginal gains in reducing already minimal exposure levels must be justified by significant risk reduction, which is rarely the case in everyday settings. Moreover, excessive isolation may lead to unintended consequences, such as poor indoor air quality and increased energy consumption. A balanced approach, focusing on targeted interventions where necessary, typically offers the best solution for public health. Retrofitting a home with a radon mitigation system is far more cost-effective and beneficial than completely enclosing it with heavy radiation shielding materials. It's like choosing to install a few well-placed security cameras rather than building an impenetrable wall around your house. Targeted measures achieve the goal without excessive expense or inconvenience. Ongoing research in material science and nanotechnology continues to develop lightweight, efficient shielding materials that could one day be integrated into building structures with minimal impact on aesthetics or functionality. Future innovations may offer dynamic, adaptive shields that respond to changing environmental radiation levels in real time. However, given that everyday environmental radiation is generally low, a balanced perspective is necessary. For most, conventional building materials already provide sufficient protection. As our understanding of radiation and its health effects evolves, so too will our strategies for mitigating risk without compromising quality of life. Researchers are exploring smart window coatings that not only improve energy efficiency but also provide additional attenuation of specific radiation wavelengths. It's like developing glasses that automatically adjust their tint based on sunlight intensity, offering protection only when needed while preserving clarity and comfort.